sake of our recording today, my name is Anna and I am the Northern Health Promotion Team Leader, and we're going to be talking about the Healthy Catering Guidelines. So I'm going to get up my PowerPoint here to share with you. Okay, in just a moment. Now, has everybody got, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, first of all, we'll just go through the first couple of slides. So I'll get everyone to pop their microphones on mute as well. And if anyone has a question throughout the help desk too, just pop your hand up for me to see, because I don't have the that working today. And also just the chat option on the side. If you want to ask any questions, go ahead and do so just in the chat. Okay. So being a fabulous facilitator of country kitchens, these are some of the questions that we might ask if someone's at that stage where they're thinking of becoming a facilitator. So do you want to contribute to your community to make it a healthier and happier community? Or do you love sharing recipes with family and friends? The aim of the Country Kitchens program is to provide support to country kitchen branch facilitators. So we want to give everybody the same sort of professionalism to go out into their communities and to advocate for health promotion as well. Okay, so it's together partnered with Queensland Health. So QCWA Country Kitchens program, we do report back to Queensland Health, and these are just a few of the things that they ask us to do. Okay, so improving our webpage and our online tools. So I don't know whether that's something everybody here would be familiar with, but what we would love to do is on top of these help desks, it's actually having online learning tools for facilitators to log into the website and to go through these online tools and to come out the other end having a bit more of an understanding around different parts of the Country Kitchens programs. Branch reporting, so that is what you ladies do take care of yourself. So it's your monthly branch report from the facilitators, and that goes around what you have been up to in your community, and there's different levels there that you report upon. And every single, whether it's tabling the monthly munch or a healthy recipe promotion, up to a partnership with a local community group perhaps, all of that gets popped into the report and it all goes back to Queensland Health. So everything is being recorded for you. And we have a target of having at least 8. So we also have the Healthy Catering Guidelines, which show of hands in front of the screen. Who's familiar with the Healthy Catering Guidelines so far? Or has heard that term before? Yeah? So we have an aim to get at least 80% of QCWA branches across Queensland using the Healthy Catering Guidelines. So now we're going to go through those guidelines. If anybody has a copy in front of them there, I do encourage you, if you'd like to follow through, that'd be great. But this is the same copy that's been out since the program got started. So my understanding is it's a few years old. They are actually going to be updated for everybody soon. So we would really love to hear people's feedback on what you would like to see featured in the next Healthy Catering Guidelines. Hint, the name could even be changed, potentially, to Healthy Cooking Guidelines. Because it's not just catering that these guidelines are used for. It can be cooking at home for our family and friends too. So they're easy. We're going to go through the old version today, and then we can have a little chat around what you might like to see in the new version too. So easy to read, lots of valuable nutrition information. If you have healthicized a recipe correctly or used the recipes correctly, you get that stamp of approval from the country kitchens. They have been approved by Queensland Health, and they're available to absolutely everybody on the country kitchens website. So you don't necessarily have to be a facilitator to go on there and have a little look at them. Although I'm going to take you through the back end today and show you how you can find them as a facilitator as well. Okay, so where to find them? That is on the facilitator website. Okay, so you would log in on the top right-hand corner. You log in. You go to Community Activities, and it's underneath Foodie Talks. That's where you're going to be able to find your copy of the Country Kitchen's Healthy Catering Guidelines. But then there's a little web link there that you can certainly use later on as well to go and just find them on the QCWA Country Kitchen's website. And as I said before, if you use the guidelines correctly, you get that through the nutritional criteria, you get that little stamp of approval, and that is the circle icon that you can see there, the Country Kitchen's approved, that you can pop into your recipe. So reasons why we would use the Healthy Catering Guidelines. Okay, these are the reasons why, not the scenarios why. So we want to promote healthy recipes and catering ideas that do promote health. So we want to give options to people. And it's also around food safety as well. So if we are going to be doing a catering event or something, or we have an ongoing catering, so whether it be for a football club or a sporting club or something like that, you don't want anybody to be getting sick and then being turned off coming back, because that's going to be a loss of profit. And it's also a break. So the Australian Dietary Guidelines, they can seem a little bit overwhelming and very information dense. However, that's for us to break down into more user-friendly terms. And so the Healthy Catering Guidelines have taken out those key points to give to everyone, because as a facilitator, you're not expected to have the background and all the knowledge of, say, a dietitian or a nutritionist, but having the basics and the foundation there to give correct advice is what's needed. Okay, so again, this is more scenarios as to why you would use them. So healthy recipe promotion, catering, and foodie talks. So encourage everybody to use them no matter what the scenario is. Does anyone have something that I haven't popped on there? Just unmute and let me know that you would use the Healthy Catering Guidelines for within your community. Anyone got any? So you reckon those three would cover it off? Glenys?
I was just thinking it's really helpful to know the dietary guidelines. You know, I use that quite a lot for reference.
Good. Okay. Nice. And so, yeah, definitely around the new guidelines, we're going to delve a little bit more into that and put little things in there like a quick reference guide that you can carry in your wallet to, like, this is just an idea, maybe, on how to read food labels. So if you're going through the supermarket or if you are shopping for your catering event and you've got two types of bread in front of you, which is going to be that healthier option that you could go for. Also things around costings and things like that. Right, keep going. And then, yes, anything you use the Healthy Catering Guidelines for is definitely something that should be included in the monthly report anytime that these get referred to. That is an important reason. That is an important thing that you should be letting Glenys or Lindsay know, definitely. Sorry, or the health promotion team leader or your division facilitator. So they have a table of contents. We go through food safety, QCWA Country Kitchen's Nutritional Criteria, catering, food labelling, the Australian Dietary Guidelines, and be aware of sugar in your drinks also. Okay, so here's where we're going to delve a little bit further into the Healthy Catering Guidelines. So the first first one is around our food safety. So like I said earlier, we don't want anybody getting sick. These are fairly just standard food safety criteria, and it comes from FSANZ, which is Food Standards Australia and New Zealand, which we base a lot of our, well, all of our food standards on in Australia and New Zealand come from FSANZ. And then we also have a QCWA food safety policy, which can be found on the website down below, that government website down below. Personal hygiene. I think we're all over that one, ladies, but we just need little tips and tricks. And it could be that you have a volunteer come in and give you a hand as well with anything. So if you've got an apron on, take off the apron before going to the bathroom. And then when you come back, putting it back on, giving your hands another wash again. In the workshops, we like to keep just a little bit of hand sanitizer. So if you wanted to just wash your hands in the bathroom, come back, hand sanitizer. Yeah, so things around also, we have to touch on this one, but smoking. If someone's a smoker and they go outside and they have a cigarette break, when they come back, giving your hands a bit of a wash, being conscious of where that smell is going as well. Touching animals. Sure, we all love to give the dogs a pat when they come into the food service areas, but just that's one of the ones we need to be aware of. And another big one too would be if you're not feeling well around the catering event, having a look at whether you need to postpone it, hand it over to somebody else, just do the back end side of things. So we don't want to be spreading any sorts of communicable diseases amongst our communities that could be easily prevented. Kitchen hygiene. We want to make sure that our kitchens are clean, so making sure all the equipment gets a good sanitize after we've used it, and that it gets put away dry too. So if we're washing up, everything gets dried before it gets put away. So reducing that risk of bacterial growth wherever we can, especially in the more northern regions as well, where the weather is a lot more humid up in the tropics. So it is a lot easier for bacterial growth to occur as well. And then temperatures for cold foods, temperatures for hot foods. Okay, so in the Healthy Catering Guidelines, there is a thermometer that you can quickly refer to just to let you know. So if you've got some catering going on and you've got some hot food there, everything needs to be greater than 60 degrees Celsius for it to be considered safe. And then with our chilled foods, we would like that to be below -5 degrees Celsius. And so your chilled foods are down around the -4 degrees Celsius. And that little thermostat that's inside the Healthy Catering Guidelines, it'd be a really great resource to just have stuck up in the kitchen if your hall has a catering kitchen, just as a quick reference guide to people, and having some thermometers there to be recording it. Now, around food safety, if anybody ever wants to have a refresher on this, have a little chat to your team leader. We certainly can refer you to an online course. It's called I Am Safe, and it's free through the council. And you can just do a quick online course, and it gives you tips and tricks on how to be food safe, and then you can print off your certificate at the end to say that I am food safe. And it's just a food safety certificate, so it's great to have on things like a resume or applications if you are applying for the catering, to say that you have that food safety certificate as well. Right, so labels as well. I haven't touched on this yet, but so checking your labels of your food. Also labeling in the fridges, like where the meat would go, so that the meat should be on your bottom shelf so that it doesn't drip down onto any of the other fresh produce. So an easy way to do that might be to put labels into your fridges of the catering, or even at home, having your dedicated meat shelf. Okay, and then checking labels. So that would be things around, especially with our canned or our more of our sort of processed things that might have, or dry goods that have been sitting there for a little while. Just check those labels, make sure they're always in date, and best before, over, best due by versus best before. Does anyone know the difference between those two? Yeah, Jen, you said yes. Do you want to let us know? You just have to unmute.
Yeah. Okay. Best before, you can sort of use it after, but not, you know, I'd sort of use it for a couple of weeks after. But use by means that's got to be used by that date.
Yes, perfect. So best before is a little bit of a proceed with caution, but use by definitely, if you're using it something after that and you do provide that food to the public, that's a big no-no. All right.
Can I give you a hint, ladies, as well? Because I've got to always butt in on everything. The best before is generally on non-perishable foods, and your use by is on perishable foods. So that's always why there's a strictness around use by. Those foods are more likely to go off because they're what we deem as perishable. And the sticky point comes, and you might want to have a conversation with this later, is yogurt. Is it perishable or not?
All right, we'll keep going through all of these ones. So the QCWA Country Kitchen's Nutritional Criteria. So to get that stamp of approval, we do have some essential criteria for everyday foods and for discretionary foods. And so for essential foods, and we'll go through that shortly, each portion contains at least 1 serve of fruit and or vegetable. There is no added sugar. And then any fat contributing foods are less than 20% of the overall composition of that recipe as well. Okay, you also get bonus points if there is no added salt. It contains more healthy fats than unhealthy fats. It contains a lean or low-fat protein source. So that includes dairy products. So if it is yogurt, using a low-fat yogurt. And contains a whole grain dietary fiber source. So these are your grain foods. And a little hint there, that also includes your legumes and your chickpeas, okay, in that whole grains category. So perhaps it could be that you're adding in, and like nuts and seeds too. So it could be something like tahini, or you could be using a hummus as a spread on your sandwiches as well. That's all contained within the guidelines. Okay, some great ideas like that. Then we move into the discretionary criteria. So if you're going to be serving a discretionary food and you would like that to be classed as a Country Kitchen's approved item, then it needs to contain at least half a serve of fruit and or vegetable per portion, so per serving. And when we say portion, so it might be that you're making a cake and it serves 8. You need to have half a serve of fruit in each portion, so that in each 1/8 of that cake. Does anyone know what a serving of fruit is? You just unmute and let us know. So it's a medium piece of fruit is 1 serving. Okay, so in around about 150 grams. So if it's something like an orange or a banana or an apple, it's that medium size. And if it's a smaller piece of fruit, say a kiwi fruit, it's 2 of those fruits, but around about 150 grams. So a half serving would be about 75 grams as well. Okay, bonus points with your discretionary foods is if 50% of the total sugar comes from natural and not added sugar. So if it was 1 cup of sugar inside your recipe, you could remove that completely and add a little bit of sweetness back through some sultanas or some sort of dried fruit or some grated apple or something like that. And then fat contributing foods only make up less than 25% of the total composition of that recipe. Again, no added salt. Contains more healthy fats than unhealthy. Contains a lean, low-fat protein source. Contains that whole grain dietary fiber source. And it is 600 kilojoules per serve or less. Okay. So that's what's classed as being a discretionary food. Does anyone know the difference between discretionary and everyday foods? You can just unmute and let us know. So we'll go on to here. Okay, has anyone seen this wheel before? The circle with the 5 food groups? Because that is the Australian Dietary Guidelines, and that is, well, comes from the Australian Dietary Guidelines, and that is the 5 food groups, and they're the everyday 5 food groups. On the other side here, okay, so your everyday foods. On the other side over here, they are your discretionary foods. Okay, so that's things like your cakes, your biscuits, your pastries, your pies, okay, or your sugary drinks as well. You can see from there all the packaged style stuff, which is predominantly where most of the Aussie diet is coming from these days, if we could. Yeah, I see a lot of nodding heads going, I see what you mean. So if we are going to be catering an event, we want to go more over here to the everyday foods and be choosing from those sources. Recipe modification. So that's really around what we're talking about here when it comes to the criteria. So the recipes that we've been using for a very long time, it's not to say that it's a bad recipe, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to improve that to be a healthier version of itself. And one of the terms that you might see thrown around from the country kitchens is this healthicize. So tricks to healthicize your recipes. And that's just changing the recipe to make it healthier. And that's just overall helping our communities to increase their fruit and vegetable consumption. And we want to check on the fat, salt, and sugar content of those recipes as well. So can we reduce or completely omit those types? Well, don't want to say like salt, we would completely omit. Fat will reduce. Sugar, is it coming from a natural source? And then we can increase our fiber content as well through adding in some fruits and vegetables and those whole grains too. So this is really what I just went through before. So taking a traditional recipe, has anybody modified a recipe before from the Healthy Catering Guidelines? Jan has, Michelle, no, Valerie, have you done it before?
I have at home, but I haven't. I never use salt, so.
Oh, okay.
And I always cut back on the sugar, and the fat. So.
Perfect. All right. So it's
so.
a bit of a refresher here for you and for everybody that would be watching this later on. So when we're modifying a recipe, we want to see, can we add any more fruit or vegetables to this recipe? Can the sugar content be reduced or substituted? Look at the fats in the recipes. Can they be swapped for healthier fats or just reduced or maybe an alternative? And is there a source of fiber in the recipe? Can you swap in some wholemeal grains, cereals, nuts, legumes, vegetables or fruits? And then look at the cooking technique as well. So trying to move away from frying our food and having a look at maybe a healthier technique. So can we pop it into the oven and can we bake that over frying it? These types of options. Okay. So adding fruits and vegetables to our recipe is going to add a little bit of moisture, more micronutrients and fiber to the meal also. Checking our quantities of vegetables per portion. Okay, so we're looking at least half a cup of cooked vegetables per portion. So half a cup of cooked vegetables is 1 serving of vegetables. And experimenting with fruit and savoury vegetables in sweet recipes. You might be surprised at something like a beetroot brownie. Okay, if you have a traditional brownie recipe and you want to reduce the sugar content in there and add it back in, you can put some more of those moist fruits and vegetables in there to keep it nice and soft. Because we also, when we modify the recipe, we still want to make sure that it's going to be palatable for the people that are eating it as well. So if we're adding an extra fiber, and say that may be through more wholemeal flour, instead of doing a 1-for-1 swap, so white for brown, you would just do a half. So keep in half a cup of your plain flour or your white flour and use half a cup of wholemeal flour. So immediately you've increased the fibre content there, but you've ensured that it stayed more palatable. Added sugar. So identifying those types of added sugar in a recipe. So does anyone want to take the microphone off and let me know a couple of ones hidden? So it could be sugar, syrups. It comes up as like a fructose or something like that on the label. Okay. And what could you use to add sweetness to your recipe instead if you're going to take out sugar?
Add apple.
Perfect. Yeah, so whether it's a grated apple or apple puree too. So apple puree can be used not only for sweetness, but apple puree too can be used instead of oil sometimes too.
Dates, I find dates very good.
You do, Wendy?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So everyday recipes don't naturally have added sugar, but are sweetened by milk, yogurt, or fruit used as well. Okay. So fat contributing foods as well. I should really be skipping ahead of myself here. All right. So our fat contributing foods, we've in the appendix 2 here. Okay, so types of fat found in fat contributing foods. Don't know whether we'll get too far into that today. Trimming fat though from all meats. So if you are modifying the recipe, you want to trim the fat off all meats in an easy way to reduce the saturated fat content of your recipe. So saturated fat, the easiest way to identify that is it's solid at room temperature. Okay, and some examples would be things like butters, dairy blends, full fat dairy as well, cream, sour cream, so full fat cream and sour cream. Our processed meats as well, so things like Devon, salami when you can see the little white bits in there, okay. Lots of our takeaway foods, commercial cakes, biscuits, pastries, sorry ladies, chocolate, potato chips. Okay, so if you're cooking a recipe and it has a protein source of saturated fat in there, just trimming that fat, that visible fat off would be a good option. And then things like if you're making a sausage roll and the meat that you're using is very light in colour, it's because it has a lot of fat through it as well. So we want to go for a more leaner choice. So we want to get the Heart Smart lean minces to go instead. And choosing reduced fat alternatives. So a lot of the fat found, a saturated fat source comes from animal and dairy products. So if we are using things like milk, yogurt, cheese, we want to be using the low fat options in there as well. Okay. And then increasing our mono and polyunsaturated fats such as extra virgin olive oil in recipes. So we do promote that extra virgin olive oil as a replacement for some of those saturated fats. Okay. So we were going to do this activity, but what I'll do, oh, excuse me. I went too far back. Okay. So the questions to ask when modifying a recipe is, does it have any fruit or vegetables? And could it have more? Can you reduce the sugar or swap with fruit and sweet vegetables? Can we remove any added salt to that recipe? So sometimes salt just gets thrown into the most random recipes, you know, of our baking and things like that. We don't need it in there. Swapping the unhealthy fats for healthy fats, and getting a variety of fiber sources, including cereal, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. So just as a very quick activity today, what we'll do is recently, you may have all heard, we've been going around and doing a workshop with the Oak Tree Retirement Villages. And what we ask our participants to do at the end of the workshop, so they've had a couple of hours already listening to, going through the Dietary Guidelines as well. And then we talk about recipe modification. And then they're given a traditional recipe and they're asked to healthicize it. Okay, so this is taking a traditional recipe, having a look at the ingredients and going, what can we take out and what can we replace that's going to make this a healthier option? So having a quick look at this traditional recipe, just taken from taste.com, which is a tomato chutney. Does anyone want to let me know of some of the things they might remove and some of the things they might add in to healthicize this recipe?
Take the sugar out. Salt flakes.
I'd take out the salt. The salt flakes definitely.
Yeah, salt's gone. We don't need that in there. Yeah.
The raw sugar, and I'd change that to something.
Yeah, so I'll let you know, Jan, that we've just been taking the sugar out completely of making this recipe, and it's worked every time still.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can add sweetness
into.
Perfect.
Actually, we put with the raw sugar, we put sultanas in, one lot.
Yep.
Forget what the other lot put in now.
Can we, so once we take away the salt as well, what we're looking is adding in things like herbs and spices for our flavorings instead. So that's using our ginger and dried chili flakes in this instance. So once you take salt away from a dish, is there something else that you could add back into it to give that extra flavour?
And how's the preservation quality of the product affected by the removal of salt and sugar when they've been traditionally the reason for including them?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Wendy. And so in this modern age, we are actually, we've got refrigeration, I guess. And so in an airtight container in the fridge is going to extend that shelf life of your spreads, definitely. And yeah, so that's how we're describing. So it's a traditional recipe. It was originally created, maybe not for taste.com because that's online, but taste.com would have gotten that recipe from an original source. And that's when they didn't have things like refrigeration or these Fandangle airtight containers and things. And they might have been traveling long distances for a long period of time. And they didn't have the modern resources that we have in our kitchens these days. So that's where that came from, especially popping it into things like cakes as well. So you'd make the Christmas cake 3 months in advance and you wanted it to last up until Christmas. These days we can freeze things, we can refrigerate things, and that extends the life of it. Okay. And then when we were adding those preserved like sugar and salt in as the preserving agents so long ago, that was I forget where I was going with that thing. They were eating a lot less discretionary foods in their diet. That's what I was going to say. So when we didn't have these modern technologies, the diet was also very, very different. And so we weren't having a lot of our processed and packaged foods on a daily basis. Okay, so discretionary foods are not for everyday consumption, although people tend to do that. Does that sort of make sense, Wendy?
Yeah. When you were saying airtight before, so if you're talking about this chutney, are you saying the airtight in terms of the jars, or are you?
Yeah. So inside the jar, it might be that you're using a plastic Tupperware container as well. Right. So making sure that it's airtight, it's going to reduce that bacterial growth inside of it as well, and then making sure you refrigerate it.
Sometimes too, though, I just find when you put things in the fridge, for a longer time, tends to dampen the flavour.
Yes.
With talking about the Christmas cake. Leaving it out.
And hey, don't get me wrong. There are some, and that's, we went back, and so if it is a discretionary food, you have the criteria there to go through as well. But look, not to take away everything, you know, at least 50% of the sugar to be taken out of the dish. So if that was a non-negotiable for you, we could take out half of the sugar in this recipe as well. That would then class it as a discretionary, more of a discretionary item. So discretionary meaning not every day. And so if we took all the sugar out and made this on, you know, more, and added in those fruits and vegetables, so we increased the fiber content by putting in some more fruit. So we could grate some apple in there if we want to, and we're getting the sultanas in there. That's making it then an everyday food. So it's getting the tick of approval of being an everyday food. You could be including this more frequently in your diet as a healthier option.
Okay, that's, good answer. Thanks.
Cool, thank you. So we'll move on. Any questions around that for anyone? No? But if what everyone can also do is have a little look at a traditional recipe, have a look at the Healthy Catering Guidelines, and if you healthicize a recipe, please share it with us as well. So you can go on, whether you put it into your monthly report, send us an email as well, say, hey, look at this. We can check the criteria and be like, fantastic, that's great. You go back and do a healthy recipe promotion, we'll give you the stamp of approval. That's a really fantastic one to take back to the branches and show them, hey, look what you can do with your recipes. And we just went through that. So we ticked off, are there any vegetables in this recipe? Those tomatoes. Could we put something else in there? You could certainly grate in carrot if you wanted to. Any fruit. So we added in the sultanas. Jan suggested that. Maybe grating an apple in there too. So that's adding the sweetness back into the dish. The sugar, we spoke around that. Salt, we took the salt out. There was no fat in that dish to begin with, so we didn't have to worry too much about that. And then identifying the fiber source in the recipe, so we increased the fruit consumption. We popped in some sultanas there as well. All good. Okay, and yes, as I said before, so sharing your tips and tricks. Tips and tricks, we want to hear all about it, so please share with us everything that you do in terms of your healthy recipes. Okay, so we know where to get the guidelines from now. We've done a quick overview on how to healthicize a recipe, but best way I learn, and I'm sure majority of people here do too, is by doing it myself. So if you want to do it, getting into the kitchen, actually having a little bit of a go and seeing whether, oh yeah, it did work out, or oh, next time I can put that extra half a cup of the nice soft fruit or vegetable in there to get that a little bit more moist too. And share all of that with us, please. Okay, so menu planning. So this comes back to catering for an event. We're going all right here on time. Okay, so this would be your time to chime in if you really want to as well. You ladies are the ones out there doing the catering events in your community. What would you like to see in the Healthy Catering Guidelines to assist you in those events? So we'll go through what we've currently got on there. So if you're looking ahead to start planning a menu, having a little look at your kitchen equipment. So we give you a list there of just the general things that you're going to need. And then some recipe selection tips as well. So knowing your target audience. Are you catering for children? Are you catering for seniors? Are you catering for a sports club as well? Obviously for seniors, we want to be cautious of things like teeth as well. So choosing, not having the seeds and stuff in the bread is always going to be a better option. That's what I mean by recipe selection tips. And that can come back to the the Healthy Catering Guideline, the Australian Dietary Guidelines too, if we got into it a little bit more. Common dietary requirements as well. So vegetarian, vegan, celiac disease is for people who have a gluten intolerance. So there's gluten intolerance, and then there's celiac disease, which is more of an autoimmune disease. We've got lactose-free, kosher and halal. So if you don't eat that way yourself necessarily, having an understanding of catering for those types of people as well. Catering for large quantities too. So if you have a high tea coming up and it is for 70 people, how much food are you actually going to need? How do you calculate all of those sorts of things? So please chime in and say, this is what you want, this is what would work and you need. But just a bit of an opinion from people, would you like there to be a costing table where it would say like an approximation of what you would need if you're a catering event for say 25 or 50 or 100 people?
We catered for a morning tea at some stage, and we had quite a bit of leftover food, which we gave away to the emergency services, but we didn't really want to do that again. So I think anything along those lines would be helpful. Yeah, definitely. And also, Wendy, what about recipes? Do you need sort of assistance in terms of recipes? Well, I suppose having a range of the healthier recipes would be useful, because I'm sure between us we've all got enough of the standard and traditional. Yeah. It would be more a case of, well, have those traditionals been modified? But if you had a range of the healthier ones, that would probably be helpful too. Yeah. Okay, great. And so leftovers too, you donated those. Is there always going to be a, like if you did have any leftovers, does everyone sort of know what to do with them? We could maybe include that in our food safety. Yeah, well, we just, I think we had things like biscuits and small cakes and such. I don't think we did anything with sandwiches. I think they were thrown out. Okay. Yeah. We didn't do anything to risk any food safety issues. Yeah, definitely. And then, so food presentation and styling. So we eat with more than just our mouths. We eat with our eyes is a big one too, with our noses as well. So when it comes to the presentation and styling, we want people to be enthusiastic about eating our food. So we could play around with different ways that we can present it, different heights as well. And all of that information is there for you in the Healthy Catering Guidelines also. So food labeling as well. Okay. So in the Healthy Catering Guidelines on page 23, coming from the Eat for Health website, it says how to understand food labels. Now this is a fairly, if you have a read of it, it will tell you what to look out for on the nutritional labels. Does anyone just feel completely confused when it comes to nutritional labels? On things to look out for? So we always try to use that per 100 gram column over the serving column is. So for anyone that can see it in nutrition information panel, you're looking on the right hand side where it says per 100 grams. If it is for total fat, we are looking for foods with less than 10 grams per 100 grams. Gets the tick of approval. Fiber. I'll come back to fiber actually, sorry. And then we're looking for the added sugar. Okay, so sugar we want to have at least less than 15 grams. So perfect one for this would be to have a little look at your as an example. Just pull your breakfast cereal out of the cupboard and have a little look to what I'm actually talking about. So it's the added sugar. It's not the carbohydrate content. It's your added sugar. And is it less than 15 grams? If it's less than 15 grams per 100 grams, that's a good option. You could continue with that one. Okay. And then without, so sodium, when you're reading the nutritional information, sodium actually comes up as, salt comes up as sodium.
Okay, and food with less than 400 milligrams per 100 grams is good, but less than 120 milligrams per 100 grams is best. Okay, so that's all. I could keep going on for you. That is all there. Fiber is the only one that we come back to per serving and have a little look, and that's 3 grams or more per serve. But I do encourage everyone to pull up page 23 of the nutritional guidelines, because it's one of those visual things that you could have a look at and have a little read of, and it gets a lot easier to start to understand. Also be mindful of health claims. So this is a big marketing one. Health claims are things like high in fiber, or hormone-free, or no added sugars, or sugar-free. Companies are allowed to make these sorts of health claims, but it's up to us to decipher that information for ourselves and go, okay, turn around, have a little look, what's my added ingredients? When it comes to ingredients that are actually listed as well, the ingredients that come first are going to be the highest quantity within that packaged item as well. Okay, so if it says something like sugar-free, and you can pick up inside that there's a sugar on like the 3rd ingredient, you're like, and the Australian Dietary Guidelines. So this is these are the guidelines themselves. This is a quick little intro. I am very mindful of time as well, so we're currently at 5 to 1. So I'll quickly go through this. This is a bit of an introduction, but this is really just basic, and this is the expectation of what we would expect facilitators to understand when it comes to the guidelines as well. So we don't need to delve in there and start giving people too much information, but just that there's 5 key guidelines, and then if we can start to try practicing these guidelines in our daily lives, that's going to just overall reduce our risk of non-communicable chronic diseases. So to achieve and maintain a healthy weight, this is through being physically active and choosing amounts of nutritious food and drinks to meet your energy needs as well. So that's having an understanding, or maintaining a healthy weight and an active lifestyle. So eating our everyday foods, but having a balanced diet from that wheel of everyday foods. On the Healthy Catering Guidelines, you'll also find that wheel on page 18 if you ever need to refer back to it. Guideline 2, enjoy a wide variety of nutritious foods from those 5 food groups. So that's the wheel. It includes our whole grains, our vegetables, fruits, our dairy, and our lean meats and protein sources. Guideline 3, limit intake of foods and drinks containing fat and added salt, added sugars, and alcohol. So we've really covered off on that one today. I feel, ladies, that we've gone through our recipes and we've identified the fat content, the salt content, the sugar content, and how can we either replace or completely omit that from the recipe, reduce it down, or just switch it out for a healthier option. So once we start being more mindful of that sort of stuff. Encourage, support, and promote breastfeeding. So this is a very big public health, initiative. So breastfeeding is best for both mum and for the bub. So if we can help everyone who's at that life stage in that our communities, encouraging them, providing safe spaces for them as well. So it might not necessarily be something that people in your branch are, they might not be at that life stage anymore, or concerned about, is what I'm trying to say. But everyone has a neighbor or a friend or a daughter or a granddaughter or someone who is at that life stage that we can help. And guideline 5 is caring for your food, preparing and storing it safely. So that's food safety. And we went through food safety at the beginning of today. By following those food safety plans, we're going to ensure that we're not going to get sick and end up in hospital as well. Okay, and then be aware of sugar in your drinks. So everyone knows that that is one of our 5 key messages, which are right behind me here as well. Okay, So you can visit that website, and there's very helpful information on page 31 for the flip card activity. If you ever took that back to your branch, that could be one of the country kitchens showcases that you do at one of your branch meetings as well, is the sugary drink flip cards.
And I did that at our division meeting the other week. I've got all the drinks.
Oh, lovely, Jan. How did it go?
It was good, but I've got it all now in a pack that the branches can take to their meetings.
Fantastic. That's really great.
You know, so it's always there, and that's what I'm going to do with the rest of them, because
nice.
I'll be moving down to southeastern at the end of the year. So I want to get up here done before I move.
Oh, great. So would you be, are you saying you'd like to share that around with the other branches?
It will be shared, yes. They can take this. Once I get the kit fixed up, they can just take the bag and take it to their branches and do it.
Oh, thank you so much, Jan. That's really wonderful. I'll let, I'll just make a note, and I'll let Lindsay know, because she could share that around, but also I'm sure Glenys would get that out for you. So ladies, thank you so much for my first help desk today. I think I've earned myself a drink of water here. Done lots of talking. Any questions?
No.
Around that? Okay, so the Healthy Catering Guidelines, does anyone need a copy? So
yes,
they're on.
I could do with a copy, Anna.
Sorry, who said that? Oh, Valerie's holding hers up. Thank you, Valerie.
I wouldn't mind a copy, thanks, Anna. Michelle Donahue.
Michelle, okay. So Michelle, what we can do is, are you right to download it off your computer? Would you like it that way?
Is there any chance of getting a hard copy sent to me?
A hard copy sent. I will pass that definitely along to Lindsay. Yep. Lindsay to Michelle Donahue. Yeah, and then one of these sorts of copies.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, definitely. I will get Lindsay onto that one for you. And yeah, as I said at the very first slide, so it's available on our website. It's also available through the facilitator logins. If you need to refer other people to it too. So people necessarily don't have to be a facilitator to be using these guidelines. And then I recommend that once everybody's all over it, then you can be helping those other people in branches to be following the guidelines as well. So it is nice for people to have options, and if they're catering it, it caters to all needs of people as well. Great. Anyone want to make suggestions on what they might like to see in the Healthy Catering Guidelines as we begin to update them?
No, I think they're quite good, with what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, everything needs a little bit of a touch up every now and again. Even the Australian Dietary Guidelines, they get changed on us as regular scientific evidence comes out. They like to tweak them and update them, and it's up to us to stay on top of that sort of stuff. But yeah, one of the things I find exciting about the new copy that will be coming out is so the costings and what it's going to cost the branch for a catering event, and that could be for 10 people, 25 people, 75 or 100. Yeah. All right. Judy, would you like to add anything in?
I was just going to say that I think that will be very useful to, the numbers for catering, because I think everyone struggles with that at times.
Yeah, definitely. Nice. Glenys, do you want to add anything in?
No, you've done well. Thanks, Anna.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, I better let you all get on with it and have a little look through those guidelines. If you've got any questions, though, please contact myself, Lindsay, Fiona, or Rachel at any time, and we can clarify that for you, or have a go at a recipe, and please, we encourage you to send it through. Probably the most exciting part of the job is getting to look at other people's recipes.
Okay, thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Anna.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you. Bye.
Bye.